What a fascinating Eastern Conference Finals it has been, starting with 4 straight home wins. Trailing late, the Bucks ran off a 10-0 run to the buzzer to get Game 1 with Brook Lopez going for a postseason career-high 29 points. Game 2 was a home court blowout. Milwaukee led by as many as 28. The Bucks bench scored 54 points, and Giannis went for 30 points, 17 boards, and 5 assists as the Bucks took the 2-0 series lead. Game 3 was an epic knockdown, drag-out grind. Giannis managed just 12 points, and Kawhi Leonard scored 10 of his 36 after regulation as the Raptors scratched with a double overtime win. And with Kawhi clearly hampered by his quad, his teammates came up huge in Game 4. The bench scored a postseason high 48, and Kyle Lowry had an efficient 25 points as the Raptors easily evened things up at 2 apiece. The Raptors' momentum and defense both made it to Milwaukee for Game 5. Kawhi was brilliant again as a scorer and playmaker, and Toronto hit 18 threes, including a postseason career-high 7 by that guy, Fred VanVleet. And that leads us to tonight and the biggest game in Toronto history, a Game 6 chance for the Raptors to reach the NBA Finals for the very first time. Game Time is here to get you ready for the first closeout chance of this series. Good to have you with us. I'm Matt Weiner, Greg Anthony right there, Brendan Haywood right over there. Kawhi Leonard has been arguably the MVP of the entire playoffs so far, and a big part of his work has been limiting a favorite for regular season MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, so far. In 131 possessions in which Leonard was guarded by, or has guarded the Greek Freak, Giannis has scored a total of 26 points on 35% shooting. And guys, as you know, a playoff series has tons of moving parts. Doesn't come down to a single matchup, but this is not a small deal. How good has Leonard been against Giannis?
He's been terrific against Giannis. He's the best defensive player, I think, in the league. I mean, when you factor in the versatility, he can guard all over the floor, the strength he has, the IQ, and also the willingness to accept the challenge against the opposing team's best player, all the while still having the responsibility to go out and be the leader offensively as well. That's a tremendous task for anyone to have to accept, and Kawhi has embraced it and really relished in that role. So he has been spectacular. To your point, I don't even think there's an argument. He's been the best player in the postseason, bar none. And that's with all due respect to anybody else that we talk about. Nobody has done what he's done on both sides of the floor.
You know, we've seen the Raptors try to wall off Giannis as a unit. How much impact has Leonard's individual defense on Giannis had on this series?
Well, Leonard's individual defense has been key because he's one of those guys that does an excellent job sliding his feet. But then at the same time, Greg, and we talked about this offset, you're not going to bump Leonard off of his spot. Giannis is great at getting you downhill, doing his Euro steps, and then bumping you out of the way. You're not going to be able to do that to Kawhi. He has the strength to go along with the foot speed. That's what makes him such a good defender. And then, of course, the big hands, they're always in the kitchen trying to steal the goodies. He does an excellent job getting the strips. He makes blocks. He's strong. He's the perfect defender. Yes, I agree with you. He is the best defender in the league. To me, it is not close, and it is because of his versatility. His versatility is giving Giannis problems. He's quick enough to stay with him on the perimeter and strong enough to give him some problems inside.
So in terms of Giannis and his production in particular, does he have to do something differently tonight? Do the Bucks have to get him the ball in different situations where maybe they can't have 4 or 5 sets of eyes all looking at him up at the top of the key?
Listen, Mike Budenholzer has to do a much better job in terms of his scheme and game plan. I feel like Giannis has become too one-dimensional. You're going to see scenarios where he's got it at the top. There's 5 sets of eyes locked and loaded on him, and the other 4 guys offensively just standing there waiting to see what's going to happen.
Right.
There's no continuity to their offense, and it makes, even for a great player, it makes it hard to get off, especially when you don't have a jump shot. And as great a player as Giannis is, and listen, he is the MVP. I don't think any question he should be the MVP for the regular season. But what you've seen in the postseason of all our great superstars, he's the one guy that is reluctant to shoot it because that's not his strength. And so it makes that long athletic defense of Toronto even that much more effective because they can offset. Kawhi's not going to guard him for 35 minutes.
Right.
They're going to have Siakam on him some. Ibaka's going to get him a little bit. They'll go small at times and give him different looks to just try to disrupt his rhythm and confuse him. But more importantly, they've got to find ways to start taking advantage of Toronto's defense with some motion. getting him on the block, getting him with some movement, not always just with the ball in his hands at the top of the key.
I definitely agree with Greg. I think you have to find a way to move Giannis all around the court, but more importantly, you need to move Kawhi off of Giannis, and that comes down to setting some very good screens, getting him open. In the Boston series, one of the plays I really love was, I think they called it like 41 punch or something, 41 smash. But basically, it's Giannis with the ball at the 4 spot with the point guard setting the screen on the ball. That is a very unique play because point guards aren't used to being in that situation, and so you're either forcing them to switch or show and recover. In those situations, most guards are used to switching that screen. And now if you get Giannis with Lowry on him, a smaller body, he's able to get downhill, create a bigger problem. And more importantly, you get Kawhi Leonard off of him. And hopefully that will allow Giannis the ability to get down the paint, score the basketball, or kick out to his shooters. He has to do a better job of finding his shooters. Toronto right now is cluttering that lane up, and sometimes Giannis isn't always making the right decision.
Well, whatever the adjustment is, the time is right now. The Bucks face elimination thanks to their very first 3-game losing streak of the entire season. Here's Giannis on what's ahead tonight in Game 6.
You cannot treat this just another game. It's a must-win. Like everybody knows it. And we're just gonna go in there and try to do as much as we can do. Leave everything on the court. Make shots, play hard, give energy, and hopefully we can get a win. It's not just another game. We gotta go in there and win, come back.
Resilient all year, and we're going to rely on each other and lean on each other as we've done all year, and go out and compete as hard as we can.
We talk about the character of the group and the toughness and competitiveness of the group. It's first to 4. We got to go to Toronto and get a game, and I think the group will be ready. They'll fill their cup up and be ready to go.
We're not going to fold, man. Come on, man. We're best team in the league, man. We're not going to fold. We're going to go and give everything we got. We're not going to go there and even they set a great tone and they come out and hit us in the mouth first. We can't fold. We're going to come back to Milwaukee being pissed. Like, you cannot fold. You got to go out there and give everything you got. If we lose, we lose. Okay, cool. But we're not going to fold as a team, and that's not what we do.
Game 5 was the slowest paced game of this series so far, and as you can see, the Bucks, who finished 5th in the league in pace during the regular season, would really like to push it when they can. Their offensive rating in the half court so far in the Eastern Conference Finals is 96 compared to 132. That's points per 100 possessions off turnovers. By comparison, Toronto is scoring 107 per 100 possessions in the half court, so much more efficient in the half court. You can't run as easily if the ball is coming out of the basket, for instance, or if Toronto's not turning it over a lot. How do they pick up the pace to a point where they're playing with the kind of tempo they need to maybe catch Toronto on their heels or off guard so they can't turn around and be set for them?
Well, first of all, what you talked about, you want to be able to get some turnovers, get out and transition. Secondly, with your defense, force Toronto to take some tough shots. Gia, those long threes turn into fast break starters the other way. And you also want to be looking to push the ball at every opportunity. You have a guy like Giannis, when he rebounds, he can push it. But Milwaukee has to do a great job of just saying, listen, when we see an opportunity, we at least have to explore it and push the tempo as fast as we can. Maybe we don't get a layup, but we threaten them a little bit. Sometimes it's almost like they've been reserved into their fate, like, okay, we're not going to get this fast break, and they just walk the ball up the court. They have to push that tempo, especially a guy like Bledsoe, because I think it's going to be important that he gets off. So Bledsoe, Middleton, those guys, they have to push tempo, try to get buckets before that great Toronto defense gets set and before the Claw can put his imprint on that defense on the other end.
And to your point, that guy we're looking at, they've got to figure out a way to get him going. It's one of the reasons why, and I love Malcolm Brogdon, and I think he's a starter in the league, but with the way their team was playing, when you put him in the starting lineup, you also take away shot opportunities for Middleton. Only took 9 field goal attempts in that last game. And you also deplete your bench,
right,
which had been a strength all postseason. They only scored 15 points off their bench in the last game. And I just think that change by Mike Budenholzer really kind of disrupted the chemistry of what we saw from Milwaukee all season long. And now, granted, Brogdon had been starting, but he had been out for an extended period, and they had made the adjustments. And then you go back, and I think it just kind of disrupted and took away a little bit of their rhythm. But the other issue for them, though, is Toronto is a terrific transition defensive team because they don't go after offensive rebounds.
Right.
Like, that's part of their strategy.
Not been an emphasis here.
No, their philosophy is we're going to get back in transition and take away Giannis's rim runs, because that's where Giannis gets his confidence and gets going. When he gets those transition dunks, that's when that entire team's confidence rises. They know the point of emphasis is we're going to go and we're going to defend. They only shot 37% in that game on the road, but they only had 6 turnovers.
Right.
And so, because even though they were missing shots, they took the shots they were expecting to take. They got floor balance. So if you're Milwaukee, to speed it up, they got to get Middleton going too. I think sometimes they focus too much on just Giannis. Middleton is the guy, to me, that makes them special when he plays at a high level. He's got to have a special performance tonight.
Yeah,
He's an all-star, right?
Yeah, and he's been struggling. I mean, held to 12 points or less in 4 out of their 5 games. That's not it. In the playoffs, you have to take your game to another level when you're an all-star. Middleton's going the wrong way. I look for him to bounce back, though. When you know how it is. When you of that pedigree and you have that pride, you know when you're not playing well. And hopefully he can bounce back. We saw something similar from VanVleet.
Something else that's changed from the regular season is Milwaukee's not hitting threes. They were second in the league in made threes in the regular season. Not a great percentage, but they're 30% for this series right now. Obviously, Toronto has something to do with that, but a lot of these numbers that we're throwing around about the half-court stuff, small sample sizes, a lot of this could get completely turned around if they just had a hot shooting night.
But I think we have to give Toronto's defense credit. A lot of their struggles are because of the way they play defense. They're building this wall. Then at the same time, they're building out, and Toronto builds out with a lot of long, lean, athletic athletes that can get out there on the perimeter. So whether we're talking about Kawhi, Ibaka, Siakam, Danny Green, it doesn't matter. Norman Powell, everybody are guys that can get out in an area and then they can recover very, very quickly. And when you have a whole team full of athletes and all of them can get in your space very, very quickly, it takes away a shooter's advantage. And sometimes guys that can't create shots on their own, they struggle in those aspects.
And that's a great point. I don't think we talk enough about how good defensively Toronto is. I mean, they basically got a starting 5 that are all NBA defenders.
Right.
Danny Green's been there. Kawhi's been a defensive player of the year. Marc Gasol's been a defensive player of the year. They bring Serge Ibaka off the bench.
Yep.
Who's a terrific defender.
He's been in that conversation more than once.
Siakam is a terrific defender. And I think, to Brendan's point about the length and athleticism, what really hurts you is their ability to help and recover.
Right.
Because they're so long and athletic that you don't have the space you're used to having when you play against them. You're not used to a guy that's 6'10" to be able to help and recover the way that Siakam can. And Ibaka's done a great job. So, they're going to have to, again, come up with schemes. I just think they're too good defensively to expect Giannis to just try to beat 2 or 3 guys. They've got to run motion. They've got to get guys on the move. They've got to screen better. They got to do other things to get other guys good looks. And then Giannis you don't ever want to create offense for your best player. He's the guy who should be able to get his own offense. Right. You got to create offense for your supporting cast. They have not done a good job of that since game 2.
It's going to be interesting. A closeout opportunity for the Toronto Raptors, who can bring the NBA Finals north of the border for the very first time.
They got Drake out there yet?
Yeah, he probably got some of these lemon peppers out there with him.
Drake out there yet, man?
Evening in Toronto. There they are in Jurassic Park. They were waiting hours to get in there ahead of this Game 6. We'll talk with Kenny Smith ahead of a potential closeout for the Raptors. Well, it's the deepest Marc Gasol has ever been in the postseason. A few months ago, he was wondering what his fate would be as a Memphis Grizzly, and now 1 win away from the NBA Finals. Thousands stood for hours on a stormy afternoon in Toronto waiting to get into Jurassic Park outside Scotiabank Arena for Game 5. Kenny Smith and the Inside the NBA crew are a game-time decision as to whether they'll be inside or outside. So tune in at 8 Eastern to find out which way they decide to go. All right, Kenny, interesting series, obviously. We've had different types of games along the way. For you, why are the Raptors a win away from the finals and the Bucks fighting for survival tonight?
Well, before we even do that, we have to acknowledge that you are amongst UNC North Carolina greatness right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surrounded.
Adding Greg Anthony to the new North Carolina family. Welcome, Greg. I haven't given you the formal. I'll give you the secret handshake when we see you.
We'll do that.
You are
we'll
now
do that
officially
during the final.
A Tar Heel.
Thank
no
you.
doubt.
I appreciate
if you want to keep
it
a secret, you probably don't want to do it over TV.
No.
That's not a good. That's not a good thing.
Not now. But it's a great series. It's fluid. Charles and Shaq has that others phase. What did the others do? What I say, when you have one guy who is dominant offensively like Kawhi and Giannis is, there's no such thing as others. You have to perform. Other guys on the team have to perform as a team. You're not going to win. You obviously, when Van Fleet played well, they win. Brogdon played well, they win. Hill played well. It depends on a plethora of things now, and this is a true team. It reminds me when we were in Houston, our first championship, when we had Dream. But if other guys didn't perform well, you'd lose the game.
Yeah, that's exactly true. You don't see teams reach this level without great superstars. So that leads me to my next question, which is, what has this series shown you about the two team superstars, Kawhi and Giannis?
Well, that they're dictated how great they are at times, how well everyone else plays. Like, they're not exempt from the fact that they can just play great and win. That's what I see. Or they're not exempt from the fact that they can play poorly and win. So it is about a team effort. And these two teams, the Bucks along with the Raptors, are two teams that are, I think, exemplify teamwork and a unit more than individual play, as we've seen a lot of guys trying to get together and play on superstar-led teams. You don't see that here.
Kenny, you talk about the others, and one of the guys that's not an other, that's supposed to be a star in this series that has been struggling, has been Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton only averaging about 13 points per game. Those numbers drastically down from the regular season. What are you seeing that's leading to his struggles, and what would you do to get him off if you were the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks?
Well, what they're doing is, they're playing a 3-2 zone. The Raptors, a high extended 3-2 zone. Basically, this is what you do when you first learn how to play basketball: 3 out, 2 in. And for Middleton, Giannis has typically been able to penetrate and find him. But on the 3-2 zone, we say we just stay home with Middleton. On that side, when he drives right and Middleton's on the right, we stay home and the other man comes to help early. If he's on the other side, we stay home, and then we have the natural chap on the left side of the floor. So for him, it's going to be to create opportunities baseline, create opportunities where Giannis typically would do it, from the top of the floor. And he has to get himself involved in pick and rolls. I think once he gets rebounds, he should push the ball himself instead of looking for Bledsoe or Giannis to create offensive opportunities for himself. Otherwise, he's going to be what I've been in my career at times at this stage, a 9-10 shot shooter at most. He's got to have his attempts up to 17, 18 shots.
Yeah, it's a great point. Are you surprised at all by the fact that Milwaukee doesn't seem to make any adjustments in terms of how they're running their offense? Giannis seems to be in the same spot for the most part, trying to attack at the top against that 3-2. There's no weak side cutting. They're not running any action to move the eyes and the feet of Toronto, who's, to me, too good defensively to allow them to just load to the basketball, particularly in Giannis' case, where he doesn't have the confidence to shoot the jump shot.
Well, they've never had to do it, Greg. Like, this is the first time ever that they've had to do that. The first time ever I think anyone's ever done this to them and done it this well. So the one thing about the playoffs and this level, it exposes your weaknesses. And now all of a sudden you've been able to get by doing things against other teams that you can't do now, and you won't be able to get through next year doing, because now everyone says, oh, that's how you stop Giannis or slow him down. So now he's going to have to, and Bud is going to have to do something different so they don't take a dip next year or tonight and go home. So to me, I don't know if you can teach that this quickly, because they start out trying to do something, Greg, and then all of a sudden about midway through the second quarter, we notice Giannis is back on top. Yeah. 3-2 zone is set. Like they go back to their old habits. It's like the person who doesn't make their bed. They continue. It's hard. They'll make it for a week. Then about another week, they stop making it.
Yeah, I don't never make my bed.
You got to bed making somehow.
Yeah, I never make my bed.
No question. I got kids, man. My wife
I know that battle. I'm familiar with that battle. Kenny Smith with us. Check him out at 8 Eastern Time. See if they're inside, see if they're outside, with Ernie, Shaq, and, of course, Chuck. We'll talk to you later. The Warriors may get their travel